So it sounded like the Nintendo Switch 2 could have the biggest launch in gaming history, not just for Nintendo, but any gaming company ever, which is pretty wild considering how big the previous launches have been. Although, there are some other big numbers here that may not be quite as exciting, but we'll get to that soon enough. So this all comes to us by way of Bloomberg, who just dropped an article hot off the presses that discussed with multiple analysts and people close to Nintendo about what they've heard or are expecting from the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. And once again, they are expecting the biggest launch ever, specifically of between 6 million to 8 million units on day one. Day one! That is a crazy amount considering the Nintendo Switch, the first one, only sold 2.7 million units in its first month. Similarly, PlayStation, for both previous systems, sold 4.5 million units in their debut quarter, meaning a period of as large as 3 months. So impressive numbers, but not 6 to 8 million on day one impressive. And to that point real quick, there has been some reportings from a user on Resetera who specifically found, user Lick I should mention, or LIC, that they have discovered that apparently 400,000 units almost have been sent to North America already as of January in advance of the Switch 2 launch. That's hardware that they reportedly already have ready to go to launch in just, the single territory of North America, which again is a strong start and strongly backs up these numbers of a potential 6 to 8 million units at launch for day one, which is absolutely crazy. And as another fun comparison point, the Wii U, only 400,000 in its first month, I believe, or around that period, the launch period. So yeah, this is freaking wild. It's going to be huge. Now, to that point, another bigger number might also apply to the price, because at a minimum, it sounds like every analyst that was spoken to is expecting $400 at, again, the bare minimum, with one analyst in particular expecting it to possibly go up to $500, though another is expecting between $399 and $449. But at a minimum, they're expecting $400, at least in part based on the cost of the NVIDIA GPU, which for the original Switch was only costing $80, which we now expect to cost for the new one, for Nintendo's price of buying it, between $130 and $150. So that would explain the larger price. In addition, there is the potential fear of tariffs coming in, which could affect both the price or, if not, Nintendo's margins, which are things Nintendo generally doesn't like having messed with. So that could, cause increases in prices elsewhere too, such as possibly software. We've already seen that Tears of the Kingdom being $70. I would not be surprised if that continues for every major Switch 2 first-party game. At least, the premier titles, which is most of them, but there you go. That's just my own conjecture, but I myself have been expecting a price point of at least $400 minimum, with $500 as a remote possibility, with $450 I think being probably the cap I would expect, but you never know, especially in these crazy times. Beyond that though, one analyst, I think as I mentioned earlier, say that it almost doesn't matter when Nintendo launches this at, because no matter what, based on the momentum of the Switch and the built-up hype for Switch 2, they're gonna sell out no matter what. So even if the price ends up being a potential factor later on, for the launch, it doesn't sound like it's gonna be too much of concern, which makes sense. There's gonna be a lot of pent-up demand. And interestingly, one of the quotes from this article is from Serkan Toto, another famed analyst that covers Nintendo. They state that we can expect a great software lineup in year one, from new Mario Kart and 3D Mario after 8 years to Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4. Now, I don't know if they're just strictly speaking to the Switch 1 launch of those titles, also contributing to Switch 2, such as backwards compatible, or maybe they know something that we don't, with both of those possibly having a Switch 2 variant, or at least a SKU for the games, which I myself have been predicting for Metroid Prime 4 at the least, and as I would be really shocked if it doesn't have some Switch 2 functionality, when it comes out at some period in that first year, if not possibly at launch, as I've personally been expecting, but or predicting, but who knows if that's going to happen or not. Again, that's my own conjecture. So that is basically it here, everyone. I'm just doing a quick check of my notes. Those are the biggest takeaways I have, but there is more in the article, which I'll link to in the description below. At the least, to say, I forgot to mention timing. People are expecting, the analysts are expecting June as the most likely launch period, which also makes sense that surely, 2 months after the Switch 2 blowout on April 2nd, or at least 2 months after. And that timing works out given what we saw the previous Switch 1, which had a similar timetable with the blowout in early January and then the release following 2 months later in early March. So yeah, that's it everyone. That's all I've got for you. Again, check out the full article and link below because it is interesting. And again, while none of this is set in stone for sure, I think it's all lining up to be very likely and extremely plausible for most of this. So, but again, we'll have to wait and see until April 2nd until we know for sure. So with that, again, thank you for watching. Stay tuned to GameXplain for more on the Switch 2 launch and, of course, other things as well. We'll catch you later, everyone. Bye.